Thank you for listening to the BJJBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BJJBrick Podcast. I'm Joe. I'm here with my good buddies Byron and Gary, who have told me already that they're doing well, and we're glad to be with you guys this month. We'll start off with a quote real quick. Working hard for something we don't care about is called stressed. Working hard for something we love is called passion. That's by Simon Sinek. Byron, what do you think about that?
I really like that. I've had jobs I didn't really care for too much, and then I've had jobs that I've really enjoyed and I want to get really good at and perform well, and they are drastically different. And I think that it has a huge effect on performance and motivation and ability to succeed and all those things. So, I mean, at times, well, people have to work jobs that aren't that fun or that enjoyable or that, challenging to them. But keep working to get yourself in a spot where it's enjoyable and it's kind of what drives you. If you do that, you're going to really excel at that job, whatever that is, or career or whatever. So I think that's Gary, what you got, man?
I was going to say, or hobby.
Or hobby.
I'm just looking at jiu-jitsu, basketball, two things I love. And, I'll work hard for both of those. I'll spend a lot of time. But when it comes to yard work, I don't particularly enjoy it, kind of like what you were talking about, some of your previous jobs. I know when you danced for Chippendale, I know you didn't really enjoy that.
Humiliating, Gary. It was humiliating.
Yeah. I mean, I'm working hard at jiu-jitsu, pushing myself, beyond what the body really wants to do. But for me, it's fun. It's passion.
Gary, we got an article just for you later on in the show, if that's what you're doing.
We got one about the Chippendales.
I haven't written that one yet. Joe, and I really liked how you start the show. I've talked to them both. They're both doing really well. It kind of saves the early, how are you doing? Doing good. And how are you? Doing good. That's I like that move, Joe. That's very nice.
Joe, that wasn't very smart, though, because Byron pays us by the hour. And the quicker we get this thing done, the less you're going to make, because Byron's paying us $2.25 for every hour of this show.
Just like
Chippendales. So I guess we want to get at least 2 hours out of it, right?
Byron's going to try to shut it down in 59 minutes, and that means we don't get paid. We have to work a full hour.
That's true. We round down. Yeah. So here we are, the main topic. Why is your jiu-jitsu not working? We'll get to that in just a minute, but I think we've all experienced that, and I'm excited to kind of maybe share some stories and some experiences and help people get their game to where it at least feels like it's working again. But if you're brand new to jiu-jitsu, oh boy, you came to the right place. What should they do, Gary?
They should check out Byron's audiobook. Your first year in jiu-jitsu, like Byron said, if you're new, it's a tough year. Your first year is a tough year. A lot of people do drop out during that time, and what Byron is trying to do is keep you in the sport to grow the sport. Basically, we have a link to it in the show notes, $11.99, over 2 hours of content. Byron guiding you through the first year. Everything from benefits of jiu-jitsu to what should I work on, to why my game is not working. So you'll get a little bit of this in there, and whether or not you should enter tournaments, injuries, stuff like that. Check it out. It's got great reviews. And Joe, why don't you read one of the reviews we have already from it?
This is from a listener. He goes by JRule777, whoever that is. We're glad to have him review the book. He says, best bedtime listening. I'm asleep within 3 minutes every time. So It's good for that, if nothing else.
I think it choked him out. I think it choked him out within the first 3 minutes.
It's all in the voice, guys. That and the content. The content is that strong. No, but anybody who gets the book is also supporting the show, and we do have a Patreon as well to support the show. I might as well knock that out right now too. If you want to support the podcast, go to our Patreon page. It's in the show notes, and you could support us like per episode. We used to do an episode every week, and now we're doing one basically once a month, and we really are. I'm trying to make some adjustments over here to make the dollar stretch further because we're not getting nearly as much income from Patreon just because we're not producing as much shows. And any audiobook sales really goes to help that out a ton as well. But still, with supporting us for even $1 an episode, I'll mail you out a BJJBrick key patch and a sticker as well. And, that won't really pay for itself for many months. But I want you guys to have that. If you want to support the show, I want to give you guys a little token of appreciation. So check out the link in the show notes, or just go to Patreon and search for BjjBrick. We should pop up. And any support is, much appreciated, especially in these times when we're not producing an episode every week. And it doesn't cost you nearly as much unless you pledge more, which is also greatly appreciated. So we talked about this schedule we have of once a month, and if anybody wants to bring one of our off-the-mat lessons, or everybody, because once a month is not nearly as difficult to come up with an off-the-mat lesson, I thought. But it's hard to retain them, I think, is the thing. Like any given day, I could talk about that. Well, then that comes and goes. But over the last month, I guess it started even the month before. I don't know. My brother, he goes deer hunting. Basically every year he's been going, 5, maybe 8 years, less than 10, I would say. And I never have been. And it's not something that my dad did or anything like that. It's just something that he picked up with a couple of friends, and that's what he does. And it's always been interesting. I'm not like a huge hunter. I'm not much of a hunter at all. I'm always up to learn a little bit and to try, but I haven't really committed to that ever. And I guess, deer season, rifle season starts, and he got a hold of me. Hey, did you want to go? And I was like, yeah, I do. And so what day? And some days he would go and I would be at work, and that's cool. And this couple times I was able to go with him, and he the first day I went, I was like, I just want to go and see what you do. And he's like, well, I also want you to be hunting. So I got a deer tag and all that sort of thing. And the first time we go out, we don't see anything, but it's just two brothers spending time. We do quite a bit of driving. More than 2 hours each time we go out, and kind of game planning something. And he's teaching me. I'm trying to learn the best I can. And the second time, I ended up getting a buck, and I've never got a deer. Never even that was my second time hunting for deer, and I ended up getting a buck. And I look back, he did that 100%. He did all of the pre-work. He did all of the stuff to make it to where it was possible. And then he put me in the best spot possible versus himself. He wanted to really maximize my experience. And then I was like, well, it was really interesting and really fun. And I got a really clean shot on the buck, and it was he just dropped dead right there. I'm like, okay, that was good. I was always worried, you see him run off and you end up wounding something. That didn't happen. And I wanted to do it more. So I got some doe tags or antlerless tags, and we continued to hunt throughout the season. And it was just I could talk about how generous and how patient and how he was teaching the entire way. But I don't think that's the lesson. I think we talked about that sort of thing with new people, because I was definitely new. I think the other thing that I could look at is, if you want to spend time with somebody, as adults, I don't spend nearly as much time with my brother as I like to. We're both busy people, and we both have our own hobbies, and we, that's just kind of how life goes. But if you want to spend time with somebody, go meet them at their place. And I think it's similar to my wife doing jiu-jitsu. granted with COVID, it's just with me, but sometimes she would just go to jiu-jitsu because that's where I was going to be. And yeah, she's going to train and learn and hopefully enjoy the process. But does she want to spend the evening with me or not spend the evening with me? I can't blame her either way. But go to where they are. If I wanted to spend more time, with any of my family members, look at the hobby and pick it up. Maybe not as a serious hobby, but as just a thing to learn about and investigate. That's a heck of a way to kind of get somebody into your life that is meaningful to you. So whether maybe it's a parent or an adult child or something that, maybe your adult son or daughter does jiu-jitsu all the time and you're listening to this, try to figure that out. Go do a class or two with them and then go do it for a month. You're going to get so much quality time with them in that process. And that's really what I feel like I got out of hunting with my brother is a lot of time, with Nathan and just the conversations we haven't spent as much time in the last 4 years together that we did over the past month and a half or so. And it was just it was interesting. And I think it's a great way to kind of get people who are important to you back in your life. What do they do? And then try to learn about that. And then we always have something to talk about or to learn about together. So I don't know. That's my experience with that. And it was much more important than, getting deer or meat or anything like that. But quality time, it's important, guys.
Well, I like spending quality time with you guys once a month on a Saturday or Sunday
At
recording this podcast.
Byron, I've been hunting one time. About, 20 some odd years ago, we were living up in Oregon. And my oldest son was, I think, 15 at the time. And at that time in Oregon, they managed their forests and their wildlife pretty carefully. And I think the only people that can get a doe tag for elk is first-time hunters. So my son had a friend who was also a first-time hunter. So him and her got their doe tags, and we took them out hunting. And I ended up wrecking my truck one day out in the snow and digging up the bumper. And, it was just a couple of long, sort of almost miserable days. And then we end up with, he got a doe, and we end up with this giant animal hanging out in the garage that I don't even know what to do with. It takes me 2-3 days to get that thing all butchered up. And my takeaway from it was, if you want to get meat, there are cheaper and easier ways to do it. But that's not why people hunt. It was a great experience for him. We bonded. He got closer to his friend and to her family. And I think jiu-jitsu can kind of be the same way. If you really are into self-defense, get a concealed carry license, get a handgun, get proficient with it. There's certainly cheaper ways to just get some exercise, but it's about so much more than that. So, yeah, that's my hunting experience. I'm glad yours was better, and maybe you can send me some venison.
Yeah, that's another thing about hunting a deer is if all goes well, you have a carcass to deal with, and then I don't know, that's hard to do as a new person. And my brother just handled that he's done it 30 times before, and for me that would have been very intimidating. What do you do with this thing? I don't want it to go to waste. All these things. So that's kind of the beginner side of it. But yeah, that's funny, Joe.
Yep. All right.
Well, should we roll on over to talk to people about why their game may not be working? And this, of course, will be no exhaustive list. There's just a lot of reasons why your game might not be working. Not to bring everybody down.
So I guess the elephant in the room is maybe it's more of a plateau busting kind of thing. I guess we're talking about if you're going 2-3 times a week, you're doing all that stuff right, and you just feel like you're not making any progress.
Yeah, so I think plateaus are relatively easy to get around because you just have to change what you're doing. Like if I'm a half guard guy, which I'm not, if I'm a half guard guy and I like to sweep and then I like to get to mount and do an X choke, and I feel like I'm tapping out the same training partners I always did, and I'm getting my half guard passed with the same ones I've always have, and then that proceeds for 3 months, and I don't ever get another sweep on somebody who is hard to sweep. You know what? Maybe it's time I do a different half guard, or maybe it's time I switch my guard entirely. That the day you do that, you may have some bumps, and it's going to be you will have some hard times, but your plateau is done. You will continue to grow as a martial artist. So I think plateau is kind of an illusion that people who just they're fine with the idea, I guess, of spinning their tires in the mud and not going anywhere because they think that they're pointed in the right direction. Like sometimes, I'm just talking about like your game doesn't work. Like you've patched together. Like let's just say I'm terrible at getting takedowns, but my whole game is based on me passing the guard with a leg drag. That's not necessarily a great game to match up if I don't have a good sweep to get me to the top position. I need to have either a good takedown or some good sweeps to get me to the top position. Like, my game's not working. And it may not... Does that make a difference? Does that make sense, Joe? That it's a little different than a plateau? At least to me, anyway.
Yep, I guess I better throw away all my notes.
You're the only notes we have. And it may be...
I got you.
I mean, I think it is very similar, but some of this we'll address in times I've experienced, but it's just like I'm just doing the wrong thing. And I think that's apparent from like an outside perspective, but for me at the time, I had no idea. And the first one, it took me several years to realize, but not having any long-term focus. So coming in, and sometimes your coach could install this a little bit by teaching the same thing, for a month or having a theme for a while and kind of just give you some of that focus. But if you come in and the coach today wants to teach a single leg takedown and tomorrow they're teaching some mount attack and then the next day, Saturday, they're teaching, foot locks, and it's just like, it's just random, and none of these things go together, and it's hard to develop a long-term focus in that environment unless you kind of just gravitate towards a thing or two. What Jake Fox will do is he'll pick a thing for a whole month at my gym, and then it's hard to not have some sort of a long-term focus, at least for that month. What I recommend is find your own, and then side study and develop that. From away from the gym a little bit and practice where you can and team up with after class. But what Jake picks for the theme of the month may not fit me or you perfectly, but you will get to learn about that. And he's got a whole year planned out, and over the course of the year, you're going to learn a lot of different things. But I know Gary's also a big advocate of this, having a long-term focus on something. Gary's been working takedowns, it seems like, forever. And
that's one thing I've always focused, no pun intended, on is I spend forever on a certain thing, but takedowns are something I really love. I to be honest, I was terrible at them and still think I'm not very good at it, but I can tell you for the last probably 4 years, I don't know if I do much jiu-jitsu. All I do is start from my feet and go for the takedown and quick finish. And, and my stand-up game is 100 times better, and it's something I've really come to love. But, I do that with everything. My straight ankle lock, I spend, a year or two working on it straight. Same thing with Kimura. I may be weak in other parts, but I really like to focus and really try to get in depth on something, and it's helped my game tremendously.
Well, I guess I'm the oddball out here. This is probably one of the areas I'm weakest at, and I find the only thing that works for me to keep me focused is I've got to be documenting what I'm doing.
Awesome.
Because because I don't do anything for like a year at a time like you guys do, but I try and do a few months of focusing on something. And if I'm not taking some sort of notes or documenting my progress, then I find that I just sort of evolve into the next step. And before you know it, it's like, damn, I thought I was working on, closed guard, and now I'm someplace else. So that's the only thing that works for me, is to take notes and have some sort of a written plan.
I would say
I love that, Joe.
Yeah, that's more common, probably.
I think. Yeah, it keeps you going. It keeps your focus. You can go back and see what you did, check your results. I like that idea.
When I start to roll with somebody, I'll often ask them, especially if they're a little bit on the newer side, anything you're working on. And majority of the time, there's just no, or they say everything. But if they say I'm working on side control attacks, we can start from there. We can start from side control to guarantee that you get some shots at this, and you get some of that training time in that. For me, my long-term focus, I think it's just, while yes, I study the techniques more, and yes, I'm thinking about it, and I might have some questions after class with somebody who got out of something I was attempting, but more or less, it's the focus when I'm rolling. What am I trying to do? And it's usually the same things that I've been trying to do for a few months anyway. So Joe, do you do the similar things as you roll time and time again, or is it totally random? Or I think the problem here is, in today's day and age, you see something really cool online. You see the way somebody finished a crazy fight or whatever, and you want to do that. And then guess what? Next week, same thing. Something else crazy happens. A move you've never seen before that will work on anybody who doesn't know it. This is going to be amazing. The best thing ever. I got to learn this now. And then next week, another new thing. I can't believe I haven't learned this crazy upside down cat choke. Okay, I'm on that one. And then,
can you make a video on that one, Byron?
Yeah, I've made a lot of videos on those. Scary. I got to get my claws a little longer. But it's just, I think it's a benefit to be able to ignore some of those things and ignore a video that shows you, 40 arm bars in 45 seconds. Like, to me, that doesn't help me at all. And I don't think that helps very many people. Now, have somebody explain, 3 mistakes that you might be doing in your armbar, or a detail that most people don't do in an armbar. That's the things that are interesting to me. If I'm focused on my armbars, if I'm not, I probably ignore that as well. I can't. There's only so much bandwidth I could take, and it seems like it's getting less as I get older.
Byron, I'm big like that. I ignore a lot of stuff. I found out that there's that overload. I was trying to learn too much, watch too many videos, and if I don't spend enough time on it, I don't learn it. And I guess this kind of brings me back to a little life lesson. It's actually kind of funny, but one day there's a commotion going on in my front yard, and I go out to look, and it's like a little gang fight. My son and his 2 buddies and 3 other kids from the other side of the street.
What kind of neighborhood you live in, Gary?
Yeah.
Suburbs.
But kind of what happened was my son's best friend and another kid from the other side of the neighborhood had been going at it. They've been, talking smack to each other on the bus and everything. And, my son really never told me about it. If he did, I would have tried to put a stop to it. But so I go out there, and my son's best friend, he's bleeding like a stuck pig. His nose is all busted up, and he got destroyed, to put it bluntly. But so I was talking to my son afterwards, and I was like, why'd you guys fight? It's that guy's much bigger and everything. Like, why would you fight him? And he's like, we had nothing to worry about because he had a secret move that was going to win the fight for him. And I was like, secret move? What was that? And he showed it to me, and it was the most garbage move I've ever seen. But
it was secret, Gary.
Yeah. But here it was, somebody saw something on, TV or something, probably tried it one time against his little brother who, weighs 50 pounds, and it worked. And, it's something you don't spend time on. You don't work it against a resisting opponent. You don't get to know the nuances of it, all the little things about it. And you try it and you end up getting your nose broken and your glasses broke. And good life lesson there.
Many days Gary has spent rinsing blood off the driveway with the garden hose. Classic.
Well, I think maybe they learned their lesson. No secret move. I mean, it goes back to those videos you see with somebody coming to run at an overweight sensei with a gi with the sleeves cut off, and he puts his hand out and does some kind of chi, and the guy falls over. I mean, it like those things. You try that against Joe. Joe's going to steamroll you. He ain't stopping. But there.
But Joe is also, it doesn't have his sleeves on.
Well, you can't fit arms. Arms like that don't fit in regular. Joe curls in the squat rack.
Yep.
Many days Joe has spent rinsing blood off of his driveway with the garden hose.
Problem is, it's his own.
Sometimes.
Yeah, he skateboards a lot.
Another thing that you might be doing to prevent your game from really working is just playing the wrong game. And the most clear example I can think of is somebody who has short legs, like really wanting to get a triangle game. That, you might land an occasional triangle, and it might be really rewarding, but it's just not matching up with your body type. There are things that will work for your body type. That's the cool thing about jiu-jitsu, is it seems to be there's no height advantage, no short or tall or kind of heavy set, or like there are people that have made this work for so many different body types, inflexibility or super flexibility. Like there are things you could do to make it work for you. But if you're playing a super flexible game and you're not that flexible, you're asking for trouble, not only just like injury wise, but just frustration of development. You're not going to get where you want to go. So I that's a common one. I'll see somebody, like if you're not that tough, and I put myself in that category. Often I'm as tough as I need to be, but I don't like to be tough. I much rather be not having to grit something out. I'm not a half guard player. I think half guard players kind of have to be kind of tough just to get that game going. It's even when it's going well, you often have to endure quite a bit of discomfort for half guard to work.
Yeah, playing bottom half guard, you're oftentimes spending a lot of time playing half mounted. So I can relate to that. If your frames break down, you can be in trouble.
Yeah, and the way that they're pressuring you, and yeah.
Do you guys have, or Byron, you're talking about playing the game that's not meant for you. Do you guys have something that you don't play that you don't feel comfortable with, or you're talking about flexibility? For me, I don't really invert. I don't play any of those inverted stuff, which is kind of weird, especially since I really like leg locks. But I've tailored my game around where I don't have to invert. I just that doesn't suit me well.
Yeah, my right hip has started giving me problems a couple years ago, and if I play closed guard, which is a position I've actually liked playing, the way people pass it a lot, I end up having a hard time walking for a few days afterwards sometimes, and just in general, I have to moderate how much I train because of that hip, but especially the closed guard. So I've been staying away from that a little bit the last couple of years.
Joe, you're talking about your hip. Stay tuned to this episode a little bit later. We're going to talk about arthritis. Might give you some good tips.
Yeah. Byron, one thing I see in this area is people not understanding that it's not a one-time thing. You don't just pick a game, this is right for me, and then that's good for the next 15 years. As you age,
yes.
You're going to have to change. You may even have to change the other way when you come in. You might be a 30-year-old kind of musclehead kind of guy who's carrying some extra weight, and you come in and you're playing a top game and a smash pass, and it's working good for you. And a year and a half later, you found that you've lost 35 or 40 pounds, and you've improved your flexibility. And maybe you're really missing out because you're not considering some other things. But then certainly as you get older, you have to recognize when it's time to go ahead and evolve a little bit.
Joe, you did it again. You won the internet.
Yeah, you keep saying that, but I still haven't got my prize in the mail.
It only comes every month, the Jelly of the Month Club, or as Byron likes to say, the Jam of the Month Club.
That's what she said.
Yeah, no, but I love that, and just because you're a top player, you're an inverter, or you're whatever, doesn't mean you're always going to be like that. Our bodies are going to change. Our maybe our focus is going to change, and we're going to turn ourselves into something else. I used to be a big-time top player, and I remember Byron telling me I need to focus on, working on the bottom, and I'd say, hey, I really like this, and change my game a little bit. But it's as stuff changes, like you said, it can't not just necessarily about age. You could lose weight, you could work on your flexibility, you could get stronger and change, and the world's about change. I mean, just look at 2020, how much change, and how we had to embrace it to keep going. So we're going to change. Our game's going to change, embrace it, learn new stuff, and just keep rolling.
Yeah, there's definitely, if you look back at the quote, enjoying it or loving it is important. So hopefully the parts of jiu-jitsu that you really love, whether that's like a lapel game or getting X guard stuff or whatever it is, the part that I love this. Hopefully that fits well with your body type and what you're able to do. But if not, hopefully look for something else that you might love about jiu-jitsu. It's often a lot easier if you match up stuff with your body type. It's just that simple. Like, it's good to know everything. It's good to know. That's why when coach is teaching you to do something, and you're like, I'm not gonna do this. This isn't for me. I'm not gonna invert. Well, in a classroom setting with a partner that you're learning the technique, you can learn the technique, and then when somebody inverts against you, you understand what they're trying to accomplish a little bit better. You don't have to always learn it for your own offensive reasons. It's often easier to defeat if you could kind of reverse engineer it a little bit as well. But play the right game for yourself. And like Joe says, and Gary, sometimes it changes.
I would also say that sometimes there might be pieces. I guess we're getting into individual pieces here in another point or two, but sometimes there might be pieces or types of movements and games that you write off. That doesn't work for me. But never be afraid to ask your coach if he's got a short fat man version of that move or an old man version, or there's a lot of times where coach will show a move and I just am having a hard time getting my body to do what I need it to do. You ask a question, and coach is like, scoot your hip out a little more. Oh, yeah, there you go. Change the angle a little bit, So don't write things off just because they're hard the very first time you try them.
Joe, doesn't it seem like a lot of stuff, the same answer is scoot your hip a little bit more? And I've ran into that so many times, I can't get it to work. Hey, what's going on here? Scoot your hip a little bit more, and it works. Yeah. So when in doubt, scoot your hips a little more.
That's what she said.
Oh, man. So along lines of the wrong game is you're just the parts of a game that you play don't fit together well. And I think Bernardo Faria had a great example of this as far as the opposite of it, I guess, is he could, at any point in time, he was just a move away from obtaining deep half guard. That's where he wanted to be, deep half. And so he would get to deep half, he would sweep you, and the way deep half is, if you're not familiar with it, when you get the sweep, you end up in their guard, but it's a particular guard every time. They're kind of stuck, and you're not going to end up in their butterfly guard. You're not going to end up in their spider guard. They're not going to get a chance for X guard. You're in a certain type of guard that they have. And then Bernardo was really good at passing that guard.
Yeah.
And so that would happen. And then from there, he would continue on with his game. But the fact that his sweep led to his best guard pass every time, that's pieces of a game fitting together well. If my best guard pass is probably a leg drag. If my sweep, I don't know what best sweep is, but it doesn't lead me to a leg drag every time. I would be better. Time would be better spent for me to find a sweep that would reliably get me into the leg drag position before I even completed the pass, or before I completed the sweep. That would be a much better fit to my game, and that would make my jiu-jitsu work better. Because the parts are no longer working against each other a little bit. They're fitting more like a puzzle piece or like a Tetris piece that gets you that little 4 in a row. Man, that's sweet. I don't know where that came out of, but Tetris.
Hey, real quick, you're just talking about Bernardo Faria, and I don't know if it's still going on, but Joe let me know that Bernardo Faria, again, gave away a free instructional. If it's still going on, check it out at BJJ Fanatics. But, how can you go wrong with a guy who is so awesome like that, he did it last year, he did it this year due to the pandemic. And, that's a guy that we need to support. BJJ Fanatics need to support that company. What a great, gesture to offer a free instructional. And I now have 3 from him, and he's really helped my game. But go over to BJJ Fanatics, check that out. Sorry for the quick plug, guys, but I just think he's a class act.
Yeah, absolutely. And that promotional will probably be over by the time this airs, but you should still go up, sign up, get an account, and follow them because they're always having good promotionals. It might not be free all the time, but they're always having 30% off, 50% off. And besides Bernardo, there's a whole bunch of other great athletes that have instructionals over there. And maybe your game's not working very well because you're not putting any off the mat time into your game.
Good point.
And getting some quality instructionals would help with that.
Yeah, and like an example, pick a tutorial or instructional, I guess, not tutorial, that that would fit. Maybe not the game you're playing now, but the game that you should be playing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Don't just buy the cheapest one or the coolest one or the one by the guy that won the last big tournament. But, put some thought into it and pick one that fits you.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, and I can't say enough nice things about Bernardo. Every time I reach out, he's super friendly, super nice guy. I'm happy. I'm sure he's having a lot of success with BJJ Fanatics and the things they have there. But, man, he's a treasure to the sport as far as is helping with even just the culture and how we need to be treating each other and how we need to be smiling more and enjoying and showing respect to everybody and that sort of thing. Like, could you imagine switching that with somebody who was the opposite? Maybe some guy who was like trying to be tough guy and Billy Badass and disrespecting everybody and just switch those two people out and like, no, Bernardo. That's who we want to help us grow as a community, is somebody like Bernardo. And I'm just glad, that he's doing his thing, and he should be rewarded handsomely for, A, what he's accomplished on the mats, and B, now what he's accomplishing in a whole new career as far as, helping people get better at jiu-jitsu. Phenomenal person.
Byron, you're talking about why your game isn't working. I know this isn't on there, but it just kind of made me think about it. But, it could be, are you enjoying the sport? I can tell you, I went through some periods where I wasn't having fun. And if you're not having fun, it goes back to your quote, we're stressed. We're going to learn better. Our jiu-jitsu is going to do better when we're having fun. And the way you were just talking about Bernardo, I was thinking of if I went to Bernardo's school, I guarantee you I'd have a smile on my face. And when I have a smile on my face, I'm more open to learning. I'm more open to having fun. I'm more open to get better. If I went to Sensei Kreese's school from Cobra Kai and not the Jiu-Jitsu Cobra Kai, the movie, I'm probably not going to have fun. It's and I'm going to be shut down and not as open to learning.
Have you guys watched that Cobra Kai Netflix thing?
I love it.
I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't. Everyone's saying it's really good. I need to
if you
watch
like
them.
I mean, it's corny, but if you like the old the movie, back in the day, especially the original one, you'll enjoy it.
Well, we'll have to check that out a little bit. Any grappling at all?
No,
Or is
but
it
if you
straight up
do
karate?
search, there was a deleted scene of a Dojo Storm. Seriously, I'm not kidding. So Google Dojo Storm Cobra Kai. So there was a jiu-jitsu school that came to Dojo Storm, but they deleted it, never made the cut.
Wow. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you look just right, pause it at frame 940, you see Gary's smiling face in that storm. Another big one, and I talked about the coach who shows up and he's showing arm bars for this month, and you know what, you can care less about arm bars, or maybe it's something more specific as far as like it's a certain type of lapel sweep. Man, I that's not my thing. I'll put the gi on, but I'm not going to dedicate a whole month to learning the lapel stuff. Or the coach that shows you a new thing every day and there's no sort of rhyme or reason. This next thing is I think a big issue. You don't take any ownership in your own development. You just expect the coach to handle that, and that's not a great way to develop as a jiu-jitsu player.
I would say the best is to have a really good cooperative relationship with your coach in this aspect, because it can be equally true that some people aren't their game's not working because they're hard-headed and their coach is continually trying to point them in a good direction, and they're continually chasing after the berimbolo even though they're 52 years old and 230 pounds. So I think really a good cooperative relationship with your coach, ask him what he thinks you should work on, kind of give him what your game plan is, get some feedback. But I do agree in the end, Byron, that it's your responsibility to get better.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that two ways. At first, when you were talking about that, Byron, I was like, well, it's kind of hard to know what game you should or what stuff you should work on unless you have the Byron's, your first year in BJJ audiobook.
You're just plugging everything today, Gary.
No, I was thinking that way, that it's hard to take ownership because you don't really know what to do. But when you're first starting, you're taking ownership by showing up, consistency. And, I'll go back to my son. He's got the same genes as I do. And when I say genes, I don't mean Wranglers. I mean DNA, which is going to lead him to be a little slow. I've always been slow, never been a fast runner. So I have put him in this speed school, a school that, teaches you to run faster and be more explosive and everything. And, I was talking to the owner about it, and I was like, what kind of results will you see? He's like, well, I can guarantee 100% results. But the people who get better results are consistent. You show up. And that's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. Even when we first learn and we may not know what to do, but we're going to put some faith into our coach. We're going to show up, and we're going to get better that way. And like Joe says, talk to your instructor. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And there's where we're going to go back to having an instructor like Bernardo Faria. You're definitely going to never be afraid to ask him questions versus, Sensei Kreese from Cobra Kai.
Gary, one thing that I think you hear often when you talk about ownership, whether it's in athletics or in your career or any other thing, is, don't make excuses. That's one of the first steps. If you're not getting better, it may have to do with the school you're going to. It may have to do with your training partners. It may have to do with your coach, but that should not be the first place you look.
Yes.
A lot of people, it's all, if I had a better coach, if I had better training partners, part of taking ownership is to look at yourself first.
Yeah, good one, Joe. And Gary. Gary, you did not win the internet, but it's tough against Joe.
Joe's Joe's already won it,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to find. Joe, you were talking about excuses, and I read a really cool. I'm trying to see if I can find it.
Gary,
No, I can't find it.
Don't give up already. We'll just talk amongst ourselves,
No,
man.
I'm trying to find it on Facebook, and I'm not 100% sure who put it down.
I probably did not put it down because I haven't put anything on Facebook forever.
No, I found it right here. And
Told
to be
you.
honest, I don't even know who this guy is, but he's on my Facebook, Cole Cordell, and he put a post up. 3 things you don't want to accept. Your weight is a reflection of your daily habits. Your wealth is a reflection of your daily habits. Your mood is a reflection of your daily habits. 90% of problems in your life are your own fault. And then here's where Joe, excuses won't solve anything. And I just thought that thing was awesome. It's,
I think I saw that too. That's a great one, Gary. I'm going to relinquish my internet trophy today back to you. That was a good find.
But wouldn't it go to the guy who wrote the quote?
Oh, the quote. Well, I don't know who wrote the quote, but
Not to Gary though.
yeah, no, yeah, I definitely didn't write the quote, but I think that thing is flat out awesome.
Yeah,
and I'm going to go share it on my Facebook page right now.
Oh well, that's
but excuses. That I personally believe that the people who aren't progressing at jiu-jitsu, they'll find an excuse, and you know, there's nothing wrong if you don't like jiu-jitsu and you don't really want to do it, but then don't do it. But if you like jiu-jitsu, and you can never blame your coach or your teammates for not progressing. You know, it's if you're at that point and you don't think it's a good fit, which is also something that is in Byron's your first year in BJJ book audiobook. If it's not a good fit, try to find another gym. And you know, not everything's going to be a great fit for us. But if you want to get better at jiu-jitsu, show up, work hard, take some time on your own, do a little self-study, ask questions, but you know, excuses just don't cut it.
Yeah. So you kind of dropped a little thing about our coaches or whatever, but there is a difference between as hobbyists and people who want to get better and somebody who moves across the country to train at a top tier gym.
Yes.
That's different. You're going to, of course you're going to develop in a different way. And but then we also have people who Lovato, who is in Oklahoma City, who has made that like an island, like not in one of the central jiu-jitsu hubs. Now it's kind of a hub of its own, but like it's different for somebody who wants an elite level of coaching, who goes to Henzo's or goes to Atos or goes to one of these major, places to train, and they pack up and they say, bye to where I used to live, and they move. That's just a whole different thought process versus most of us who are listening today, who have jobs, who have
that's
careers.
What you want, though.
And I don't even want that. That a professional athlete is not an attractive lifestyle to me. Not only the fact that I'm like in my 40s. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't Raphael and his dad kind of get their early training and their start? I want to say they drove down to Dallas like almost every weekend or once a. Yeah. So they're really a good example of kind of both things, being willing to travel and do what it takes to get that good training. But then eventually they built their own, training, like Byron said, a hub right there. So, but yeah, when they started, I don't think there was any jiu-jitsu in Oklahoma City.
No, I mean, that's the first tournament I went to, was their tournament in Oklahoma City. I think I was I don't know if I was still white belt or a blue belt, but it was like, I don't know, 2002 or 1 or I don't know. And it was just, that's the biggest game in town is what they had going on, and they had a tournament, and it was like, okay, let's go do this. But otherwise,
the best thing about that is Justin Rader was in Byron's bracket, and Byron got lucky enough not to have to go against him. He may have never kept doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, maybe so. That is true. Yep. I did not make it that far to that bracket. So I don't take ownership of that, Here's another thing that will that upon reflecting on your jiu-jitsu, maybe holding you back, is you're not training with 3 different types of training partners. Someone who's worse than you, better than you, and about the same as you. And they all have an important spot in your development. Joe, you have anything for that? How do those fit together like a wonderful little puzzle?
Well, since this is something I made a note on, let me take this another direction, and then you can circle back to it if you don't mind. I think you could also make this application to the type of training room that you're putting yourself into. If you go to a school that's got a number of classes like ours does, there's some that are competition orientated. There's some that are much slower paced by design and sort of designed to be experimenting and learning, and others that are designed to make you be a better athlete and tougher. And so I'll let you circle back to the individual training partners. But if you're avoiding competition class on a regular basis, you might want to take a few months and put yourself in that and throw yourself to the fire, and that might help. And on the other hand, if you're only going to competition classes, you might want to slow things down a little bit. So that's my take on it. Sorry to derail your train there.
That's a good take, and you always have kind of a interesting view on things that is a little different. That's why we don't have just one person on the show. But my thought on this, okay, someone who's worse than you, that person, everyone is thinking, okay, yeah, somebody who you could work on your new stuff with and maybe use them a little bit for learning purposes. But it's also important to have somebody that you're mentoring, that you're helping to bring up, and that you're teaching things to. So that person, and it doesn't need to be the same person, but they kind of fill more than one role. You should be having that mentor role as well, on the mats. And it might just be, after you catch somebody in the guillotine, or maybe how about this? You caught somebody in a Avant flu choke because Avant flu choke is just I'm in side control and I grab around Gary's head to squeeze the back of his neck, which does nothing. And Gary has the ability to trap my arm and then apply pressure to my neck and choke me in that spot. Now, grabbing his head that way is not an intelligent defense, but it just feels like it's a common thing for somebody who's new to do. Now, when Gary lets off of my neck, he can say, "Hey, man, there's really no reason to grab my head that way. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to get you choked. It doesn't help you escape." Boom. He just mentored me a little bit. So just giving a little bit of advice, even after your role, helps. If hopefully it's well received. If I go, "Yeah, no, man, I just was trying something new," that's not going to get good advice. So have somebody you're mentoring, somebody better than you, somebody who you want to throw your A game at, who you want to throw your best move at, and see if it sticks, and see if they, okay, here's my best guard. Oh, they slice right through it. Okay, it's not the perfect guard. I still have work to do. Maybe ask them, like, "Hey, what can I do to make that a little bit tighter? What can I do how can I prevent you from doing that pass?" And then a similar skill level as you is that's just fun. That's just the good roles that you have that are back and forth, and some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. And I think that all 3 of these types of training partners are very important. And if you're the best person in the gym, you still need to have somebody helping you out. Maybe it's your coach that lives somewhere else, or maybe you look for certain a close guard player to help you with your close guard game because that's kind of weak, or whatever it is. You still are finding ways to get some development from somebody. It doesn't need to be their entire game is better than your entire game. But you should try to find that spot where you have kind of all 3 of those training partners. And it goes good off the mat as well. At work, you have somebody you're helping, train to get up to your speed, and have some good coworkers that are there with you in the trenches doing the work, and then have somebody who could point out your mistakes and help you get better. Boom. It's a pretty simple concept, and I think it goes a long way to getting better at things.
And when you first learn a new move, find the biggest, baddest brown belt in class and try it on him, right? I've heard the opposite.
That's how you know you're not going to waste your time, if it works on that person.
That's right. That's right. Now, I've heard when it comes to learning new moves, that's a really great way to start is with the smallest white belt. And, once you can do it proficiently there, then you move up to a bigger, more experienced white belt or blue belt, and you kind of work your way up. Because if you just learn a brand new move and you're a blue belt and you're trying it on the purple belts, you're probably going to be a little frustrated. And I've seen people give up on moves because of that before.
Yeah. I like to try it on everybody, and I don't think Joe's advocating that you pick on the smallest white belt in the room. Either nail him with the same, loop choke every time. But yeah,
no, it's only for learning moves, and it's done in a training type of. Yeah, I don't find 140-pound white belts because they're the funnest people to work on knee on belly on.
Another one here, and we could bring up Bernardo again. There's no funnel to get to your system. So let's just say you have that thing where you have kind of those interlocking pieces that fit well together, but you got to get to where that starts. And so just think of it as a funnel. What's a funnel do? It takes a lot of a big mess and makes it nice and neat and kind of in one spot. So Bernardo has a way to get to deep half guard from basically anywhere. You could have his back. He's going to kind of wiggle down a little bit, get his arms in position, and boom, deep half guard. He could pull deep half guard at the start of the match. He could, he had, from side control, he's got access to deep half. Like from bottom side control, like he's always a move away from his strongest part of his game. That's a good funnel. So have a way to, if your game is a lapel sweep and you work from top and you get to keep that same grip the whole time, that's awesome. And you miss your sweep and they pass your guard. Now what's your funnel look like? How are you going to get it back to where you want it to be? You've got to have that in order to have your game be working. Does that one make sense?
It does make sense. And I was going to ask Gary how that plays in his game, because, Gary, you've been a leg lock guy for a long time now, and you're doing takedowns. What's your preferred method to get from a takedown to the leg?
I really like low singles. I had a low single, and, as soon as I pushed through, I already had the ankle. That's one thing Byron, kind of taught me a long time ago. I kind of consider Byron like my professor, my sensei, my instructor, my coach. I've learned a lot from him. And, one thing Byron told me, years ago was he's always been big in this funneling. And, this was before I was doing leg locks, and, it was Kimuras were my big thing before that. So, one thing that really Byron has always had me working on is funneling. Like, I don't consider a Kimura one submission. I consider it like 30 different submissions because I got 30 different ways to get there. And when I started thinking of it that way, same thing with leg locks, it's made a big difference on my game. And, I'm trying to, like, Byron talked about earlier, how do you sweep and get right into the leg drag? And it's funny because when Byron was talking about that, when I do that, when I do have the ankle on the bottom, I have now been working on going from bottom to top with the ankle. And I was sitting there thinking, man, that'll lead right into the leg drag, which isn't my game. But I was thinking I was going to show it to Byron. Maybe that'll help his game. But yeah, I do think that is very, very important to funnel into your position.
And Byron, isn't that largely why you've gravitated towards the leg drag? Is because it's an avenue to the back? Do I remember that correct? Yep.
Yeah, and it's not just, it's a pathway to the back where at no point along that way am I doing something that I'm not proficient at. I don't have, so it's, and I do have a good funnel. I like to get to leg drag position from turtle position, from passing the guard, from passing almost any kind of guard. I could get that kind of funneled into a half guard position. If you escape side control, I have a funnel to get that leg drag before you fully get your guard back. Like, those are all, each time I learn one of those, my game doesn't get better a little bit. It gets better a lot. And it's just a small thing you could learn that really helps your game. And that's a good funnel you pick out on me, Joe. I appreciate that. Tell us about one of your funnels there, Joe.
Oh, Joe used to funnel a lot when he was in college.
Well, I like to play top half, and I like to play bottom half. And I don't know if it's quite a funnel, but I don't very often sweep trying to get to side control. I know technically it's a more dominant position, but I like to set up from top half guard. So almost every sweep that I have or that I utilize puts me in a top half guard position.
I love it.
And then from there, I like the Ezekiel choke and a couple other things.
Yeah, and I remember rolling with you, Joe. It's like, I've mentioned before, half guard game is kind of I think you got to be kind of tough to play it. I don't play a half guard game. It's not fun. So I notice, and we have a couple of guys that do this at Fox. Somebody, and Joe did it to me. He forced me to play half guard. Like the way that you're moving on top sets me up to where, oh man, I'm playing half guard now, and I hate that. I like warning bells go from my head. Like, you didn't do this, Byron. This happened to you. You are not on half guard voluntarily. Joe did this to you, so it's not by accident. It's totally different than somebody who just likes to go to half guard. Joe forces his half guard as part of his pass, and that's something that took me forever to notice about people. I'm like, man, I'm playing half guard again. This is terrible. It's not fun. And then you start to notice that's how some people pass the guard. And Joe's one of those guys. And so that is a warning bell that goes off in my head when I feel that. And that's just part of your funnel. And the fact that your sweep gets you to your top game funnel, that's awesome. Wish I had those sweeps from half guard, but they're just not going to be for me.
Yep. All right.
Well, kind of the end of the road here is just to look back at, the whole thing is, why is your jiu-jitsu not working? You know what? Jiu-jitsu is tough. Maybe it is working just fine. It's just this is a tough game, and it's about doing this to an unwilling opponent that knows what you're trying to do. It's just hard to get that working a lot of times. And don't discredit your training partners and your the people you compete against, your rivals or whoever. Like, they're good at jiu-jitsu. It's really hard to do. You could put any blank move into somebody who knows about that move. It's just so easy to do that, to do any move you want to do to anybody who doesn't know jiu-jitsu. That's easy. But if I know Joe's sweep, and I know Joe's half guard pass, and I know Gary's Kimura, it's much easier for me to deal with those things than if I have no idea what they are. Jiu-jitsu is tough. And I think that's part of the fun of it, is learning the little nuances that makes the difference between Joe finishing his half guard pass and Joe not finishing his half guard pass, and what I could do to stop that. I don't need to make a huge change. I need to probably make a small change with maybe just moving my hips in a certain way, and I keep my guard, or I recover a butterfly guard or something like that. Jiu-jitsu is tough, guys. Any disagreement on that?
No.
None whatsoever.
I think it's just you need to work to make that part of the enjoyable part of the process. It's kind of fun to think that even the best in the game openly admit to learning constantly, and so that we could be as studious as we want to be in this game, and we're never going to learn enough stuff to learn. You can be kind of boneheaded about it and fumble around, and you still will find new things all the time and new parts of techniques, and you still get to learn.
Yep. Byron, you're talking about your training partners and teammates are getting better along the way. Something just occurred to me. Wonder how many times you go home and you're like, not necessarily this month or last month, but throughout your jiu-jitsu journey, how many times you go home and you're like, God dang it. He had me at half guard the whole time, and I could not pass. And that same guy went home and told his wife, I had Byron in half guard the whole time, and I couldn't get a sweep. What's wrong? My jiu-jitsu's not getting any better.
But isn't that the best feeling, though, when somebody does that to you and makes you feel helpless? For me, I love that because it now just told me, here's what I need to work on. And I love then putting in that time to get better at, Byron's got back control on me. So one thing that was really weak on me was my back control, and Byron did a seminar and, he showed a couple little things that I wasn't doing. I spent, tons of time working those little tricks, and it just made my game so much better. And, the opposite is when somebody takes back control on me and holds me there for 5 minutes and runs a submission train on me. It's the best thing in the world is now I'm going to work that so I can get out, and then I'm going to test it. I'm going to go right to that same person, and he only holds me in there for 4.5 minutes and only taps me out 3 times. I improved a little bit. And then, hopefully I can get it down to 4 minutes and only get tapped out twice. But I'm going to keep going and getting better. I love it when that happens.
Celebrate the small victories, man.
Yep, that's what my wife tells me.
Yep.
That's what she's learned to do. Oh, being married to Gary. Only one woman can handle that. Anyway. Yeah, so we've got an article of the week. I guess I say the week. Article of the episode. Let's just say that because that's what's happening here. The ultimate guide to arthritis in BJJ and how to prevent it. Is this something that you guys worry about?
Well,
go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say I have not had an official diagnosis, but my hands hurt a lot if I'm doing dumb things. Actually, I like this article, and I like when they talk about moving away from a grip-based game, but I think just gripping smart has a lot to do with it. Don't grip hard all the time. Know when to let go. One mistake I make a lot of times is I'll be chasing a bow and arrow choke or something like that, and I know I don't have enough collar in my hand, and I'm just grasping onto it with my fingers, and that's just a dumb thing to keep chasing that, really, especially as you get older. So I got sore hands, and this is a good article.
I cringe at those pictures that people put up as like a bragging thing with their fingers all tore up and taped and swollen. It's like, that's going to come back and bite you.
Yes.
Those don't heal completely ever, potentially. Maybe you have good genetics and you'll be fine, but you want to be an old person who could walk and get around and also use your hands. Those are important things, like you're just taking that away from the old you.
Yep.
So, yeah, I totally agree with the grip stuff. In your example of the bow and arrow is really good. If you have a good grip, if you're gripping it with your hand and not your fingers, that's different. That's a strong grip that doesn't rely on like the little tendons in your fingers to hold tight or snap. There's a lot of difference there between those things. And the other example I have is if I grab your pant sleeve or your pants low by the ankle, and you're going to kick out of that, I'm going to let go before that happens. Like, I don't want the force and strength of your leg impacting my fingers. That's terrible. And you know what? I used to be able, I could hold on a lot of times. A lot of times I could grip a little extra tight as the impact's coming in, and I'm fine. And it holds tight, and I still have that sweet grip. But you know what? I could let go, and as you kick back for no apparent reason because I've let go already, I can make a transition to something better. I am not a fan of the grip game. I've played it before. I used to be a loop choke guy, and a lot of times I go home, my hands would be sore just from getting not a real good grip before I started the choke. Yeah, I basically pay my gi game is like my no gi game. Gary, what's your gi game like? Does it make your hands sore at all?
No. I've gravitated to the no gi game. But even when I do roll gi, I roll no gi. My grips are different. But back when I trained gi all the time, my hands did hurt. And, I was probably that guy who, held onto a grip too long. I like it that I've heard you many times talk about, I'll give up position instead of just destroying my hands because I don't have a good grip. And, I know you just talked about it there also, Joe, on a bow and arrow choke.
Yeah, and ultimately you want to be dictating the pace and the direction of the game anyway. So that's another reason to relinquish a grip before it gets broken. If you got a lapel grip and your opponent gets 2-on-1 and he's going to yank that hand away, just beat him to the punch and transition to something else.
Yeah, and it's hard for people if you spent the past several years learning some taping fingers grip based game, and you're like whoa, this actually might not be a good idea for me long term. It's hard to abandon that, and I've had to abandon parts of my game before. And I used to do triangles all the time. I wanted to pull guard and triangle. I wanted to get top and triangle. I wanted to triangle everybody, and it didn't really fit long term with my body type. I would go home sore a lot. I'd have lower back issues. My legs would be sore. My knees would pop a little bit. You know what? Bye-bye triangle choke. And I had to just get rid of that part of my game. And for quite a while, I was not as good of a grappler as my grappling self. It's kind of frustrating, but that's how it goes. I did the same thing with a rubber guard. I spent a lot of time as a purple belt as a rubber guard player. And I realized, I'm not tapping on people who are better than me ever. I'm literally just picking on people who are the white belts and blue belts and with my rubber guard. I thought about it. I continued to train a little bit. I questioned it. And then I said, you know what? I don't think it's fitting my body type. I think this is not for me. It's hard to abandon something, even if it's your game is grip based. But maybe play a turn or two of, you know what? I'm going to play a whole round without even getting a grip. And maybe that is that newer person, and you see how that goes. And then, okay, maybe I'm going to do half the grips I usually do, or I'm going to only grip, start to scale it back and see what else you find. There's a lot out there you could do without playing a grip-based game that tears up your hands.
I remember, Byron, when you started taping your hands so they were totally straight, so you couldn't bend your fingers at all, and that way you couldn't grip, anybody's gi. I thought that was a smart idea.
Did I do that? I thought there was a joke there, but one way to do that is to hold a racquetball or tennis ball in your hand and grapple, and you can't grab anything if you're doing that, but you get a little pinch with your thumb. It's kind of interesting.
I just want to plug Byron's other audiobook here real quick because we've been talking about...
We've been doing plugs.
Well, we've been talking about, changing your game as you need to, and Byron's 6 games for BJJ may be a good tool to help you figure out what games you should be playing and what direction you should be moving, and not even just sticking to the 6 specific games that he lists in there, but using that type of mentality. And the holding a tennis ball or a racquetball is exactly what I was thinking. If you're a gripped-based player and you want to see experiment with things that don't rely on a grip, hold a tennis ball in each hand.
Yep, that's the
and grapple. And grapple.
Yeah, the overall arching episode part of this article is take care of your body. And if your game is really just destroying it, maybe make that change. Or I would say definitely make that change. But we'll put a link. I didn't even say it's on BjjTribes.com. Check out the link in the article to check out a full description of what they have going on there with the BJJ and Arthritis guide. It's the ultimate guide, according to the headline. which got me to click it and share it here. Anyway, I had a blast chatting with you guys again. Once a month, it seems like every time we get on, it's like, man, I got to plug in all this stuff and figure this out again. But once I have a blast. It's always fun.
Good times, guys. Yeah.
Oh. Well,
all right.
Yep. Until next time, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, train more than once a month, and you will get better, guys. We'll see you on the mat.
No excuses.
Once a month, that's pretty rough.
Take no prisoners.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.